a people's resistance against Maduro's tyranny. Welcome to our channel. Today we will address a critical and urgent issue: Venezuela's history since Nicolás Maduro came to power. This country has faced an unprecedented political, economic, and social crisis in recent years. But what are the roots of this crisis, and how did we arrive at this point? This video explores Nicolás Maduro's rise to power since his 2013 election and the crises that have characterized his leadership. We will highlight key moments that have shaped Venezuela's current situation and consider the country's future. Subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss our latest videos. Now, let's dive into today's story. On December 8, 2012, Hugo Chavez urged the public to vote for Nicolás Maduro if he died, expressing confidence in him as his successor and the continuation of the Bolivarian Revolution. This speech marked a pivotal moment in Venezuela's political landscape. Chavez died on March 5, 2013, after a long battle with cancer diagnosed in 2011. After Chavez's death in April 2013, Nicolás Maduro, his vice president, ran for president. Backed by the Chavista political machine and Chavez's legacy, he defeated opposition candidate Enrique Capriles Radonsky. The elections occurred in a tense political atmosphere. Opponents claimed irregularities, and the international community accused of fraud, resulting in widespread distrust of the results. Maduro's regime faced significant challenges from political opposition while trying to maintain the loyal support base inherited from Chavez, which influenced his political and economic decisions. Maduro implemented drastic measures to stabilize his regime, which harmed the economy and affected millions of Venezuelans. This escalated political and social tensions, shaping the nation's future. The government nationalized key enterprises, bolstered its authority, and delivered service industries. However, these actions and the grotesque corruption led to disastrous consequences. The Venezuelan economy, already heavily reliant on oil exports, suffered a devastating blow when oil prices fell in 2014 due to global market supply and demand factors. As revenues declined, the government implemented exchange controls that restricted foreign currency access and increased unbacked money issuance, worsening hyperinflation. By 2020, official figures from the International Monetary Fund reported annual inflation exceeding 3,000%. The dire economic situation and shortages of essential products like food and medicine forced many Venezuelans to queue for hours for survival necessities, resulting in widespread malnutrition and disease. Tensions between the government and the opposition increased, leading to mass protests over political and economic issues. Attempts at dialogue aimed to address political rights, fair election conditions, and guarantees for opponents, but mistrust between the parties hindered progress. In the December 2015 parliamentary elections, the opposition coalition won a historic majority in the National Assembly, transforming Venezuelan politics and the balance of power. This victory also led to ongoing conflicts between the National Assembly and the executive branch. In 2017, facing increasing pressure and social discontent, the Maduro regime established a National Constituent Assembly led by Jorge Rodriguez, Delcy Rodriguez, and Celia Flores to draft a new constitution. However, its formation was controversial, as many saw it as a strategy to consolidate power and circumvent the elected National Assembly. The Maduro government continued to assert that the crisis was due to an economic war between imperialism and the opposition, despite growing public discontent and pressure. This narrative shaped perceptions of the situation. As the economic crisis deepened, the opposition gained support and mobilized a disgruntled population. In 2014, Venezuela experienced mass protests driven by severe shortages and hyperinflation. These protests peaked in 2017, with millions demanding change and justice. The streets became a battleground for a populace weary of misery and repression. What started as a struggle for essential necessities evolved into a broader movement for freedom and democracy. The regime's response was brutally unjust. Nicolás Maduro, with support from Diosdado Cabello and Vladimir Padrino Lopez, used security forces and colectivos, armed groups, to suppress demonstrations, resulting in hundreds of deaths and injuries. Repression was systematic, with thousands of protesters arrested and many tortured in prison. International organizations like Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International documented these abuses, holding the Maduro regime accountable for serious human rights violations. This global condemnation reflects the world's solidarity against such atrocities. The persecution of opposition leaders intensified, with Leopoldo López, founder of the Voluntad Popular Party, imprisoned and later under house arrest, symbolizing the struggle for democracy. Other leaders like Maria Corina Machado faced threats and political disqualifications, fostering fear among the opposition. In the 2018 presidential elections, Nicolás Maduro was declared the winner, but the process faced accusations of fraud and irregularities. As a result, many countries and organizations, including the Organization of American States, refused to recognize the election results, citing a lack of democratic standards. In 2019, Juan Guaidó, president of the National Assembly, declared himself interim president of Venezuela. He challenged the legitimacy of the 2018 elections and called for new elections. He received support from various countries, including the United States and several Latin American and European nations. Economic sanctions were imposed due to the Maduro regime's authoritarianism, including oil export restrictions, banning financial transactions, and asset blocking. While aimed at pressuring the regime for political change, these measures devastated the Venezuelan economy, exacerbating the humanitarian crisis and causing significant suffering among civilians. The regime has forged strategic alliances with Russia, China, Iran, Turkey, Syria, Nicaragua, and Cuba to secure political and economic support, as well as trade and military cooperation, crucial for its survival amid international isolation. Venezuela's crisis highlights its global significance, showing that its internal conflicts are interconnected with the broader international system, affecting many nations. Venezuela's political and economic crisis has resulted in a severe humanitarian crisis, leading approximately 10 million people, about 30% of the population, to flee. Most seek refuge in Latin America and the Caribbean, while others migrate to the United States, Canada, and Europe. This mass exodus has created an emergency in the region as countries struggle to cope with the arrival of thousands of migrants daily. Many are escaping extreme poverty, political repression, and violence. Migrating individuals face challenging conditions, often leaving their belongings behind for safety and better opportunities. They encounter closed borders, xenophobia, and poor refugee camp conditions, yet their resilience and determination are truly inspiring. The Venezuelan diaspora has made notable contributions to their host countries by finding jobs, starting businesses, and integrating into communities. However, their presence has also increased pressure on health, education, and social services, leading to labor competition and tensions in local areas due to concerns over integration. Countries worldwide are taking diverse actions to address the Venezuelan diaspora, supported by organizations like the International Organization for Migration and the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. This collective response offers reassurance that we are not alone in this crisis. Colombia hosts the highest number of Venezuelan migrants, followed by Peru, which has experienced a notable increase in its Venezuelan population. Other countries with substantial migrants include Chile, Ecuador, and Argentina. The humanitarian crisis has prompted regional and international leaders to demand political and economic solutions for Venezuela. They emphasize the need for long-term strategies to address the crisis's root causes, including promoting democracy, strengthening institutions, and fostering economic development. Venezuela's economy is undergoing a significant shift towards unofficial dollarization due to hyperinflation and the instability of the bolivar. Many Venezuelans now conduct transactions in dollars, bringing temporary stability to commerce and services. However, this solution is still informal and unregulated. The dollar's widespread use reveals the regime's failure to restore confidence in its currency. This highlights the severe economic situation and raises concerns about its long-term implications. In the 2024 presidential elections, Venezuelans elected Edmundo González Urrutia as president for the 2025 to 2031 term, reflecting their desire for democratic change. However, the regime forced González Urrutia into exile in Spain after issuing an arrest warrant. Meanwhile, Maria Corina Machado symbolizes the people's determination to fight for freedom against oppressive tyranny. González Urrutia is recognized by the US, several Latin American countries, and Europe. However, Maduro's swearing in for a third term on January 10, 2025, has intensified political and social tensions, raising concerns about the legitimacy of his presidency and the future of democracy in Venezuela. Maduro has indicated his intention to propose constitutional reforms, raising fears that he seeks further consolidation of his power and limits options for the opposition. The international community has expressed growing concern and pressured the regime to uphold the rule of law and investigate human rights violations, offering hope for a peaceful solution to the crisis. Venezuela's future is uncertain as internal and external pressures rise. The potential for democratic transition could come from international intervention, grassroots movements, or changes in national power dynamics. Venezuelans' ability to unite on a common front is essential and empowering. Although the strategy has fragmented and diverged over the years, signs of a new generation of leaders willing to seek real change are beginning to emerge. International pressure is crucial as support from neighboring countries and organizations can accelerate change. However, radical measures and polarized discourse may increase tension and complicate the political landscape. Allegations have emerged linking Nicolás Maduro's regime to drug trafficking amidst the economic and political crisis. Reports from the Drug Enforcement Administration and other international agencies suggest that high-ranking Venezuelan officials, including military members and Maduro's inner circle, are involved in these activities. Drug trafficking routes through Venezuela have increased corruption across state institutions. This relationship between the government and drug trafficking has led to accusations of institutionalized corruption, facilitating money laundering and enriching specific sectors. The U.S. has offered $25 million rewards for Nicolás Maduro and Diosdado Cabello, and up to $15 million for Padrino Lopez due to allegations of drug trafficking, corruption, and human rights violations. This reflects the international community's push to hold senior Venezuelan officials accountable and could impact the country's political landscape. Key figures like Jorge Rodriguez, Delcy Rodriguez, Celia Flores, Tarek El-Aissami, and Tarek William Saab are complicit in the atrocities and human rights violations against the brave people of Venezuela. The desire for freedom, justice, and well-being persists in Venezuela. Each demonstration and effort toward unity marks a step toward a better future. While the path to democracy is challenging, hope for change endures as people strive for a nation where every voice matters. As we conclude our review of Venezuela's recent history, reflecting on the lessons learned and the future ahead is crucial. The current situation arises from political decisions, institutionalized corruption, and profound human suffering affecting the nation. Immediate action is necessary. The international community must be more proactive and move beyond bureaucratic hurdles and hollow diplomacy. As engaged citizens, each of us can contribute to addressing the Venezuelan crisis by staying informed and raising awareness. Your thoughts matter. Should military intervention be considered? How should the opposition engage with the regime? What role should the international community play? We invite you to share your comments below and join the conversation about Venezuela's future. Thank you for participating in this initiative. Every voice counts in the struggle for democracy and justice.